Hey everybody, this is Alzorath, and welcome to another Diablo 2 build video. This one is actually, you may be looking at, you already did a Tesladin. Yes, we actually did the Avenger Tesladin, and due to the popularity of that one, I decided I'll show off some of the other variants of it. This one is the Zealot version. We're of course doing it on Arthas again. I have respect his skills, and we are doing the more popular, it's the Zeal version. It does a little bit less damage per hit. It's better at dealing with crowds, and it's still a good build. I just am not a huge fan of Zeal, but it does work out for you, so it's a good build. It does lean a little bit more on physical damage, and there are some different variations you do for Zeal than you would do for, say, Vengeance. So let's go ahead and look at the stats first. Stat-wise, it's not too different from the Avenger version, the Vengeance version, except we are using a different weapon, so we don't need nearly as much strength. So our strength is just enough to use our gear, which isn't too bad. It's actually, when we have a little bit of extra because we have gear that gives plus strength. Dexterity is kind of like my dump stat now, because I've gotten up, once I get to about 1,000 life on any of these Avengers, I'm not too worried about extra life, but I'm kind of going between Dexterity and Vitality, letting them both get up, because you don't hate more life, but you also still want to keep either a max block, which is we're going to have until the mid 90s. I might have to put another level or two into Dexterity to keep it up, but other than that, it's not going to be a big deal. And you want to keep your attack rating up so you can actually hit various things. Vitality, I just go for 1,000 life and then worry about other things. So as far as the skills go, obviously we are not using Vengeance on this one because this is the Zealot version, so we're going to be looking at some other things first. We are a Tesladin, so we do want to get into the Resist Lightning and the Salvation for our synergy with our equipment, which I'll show off in just a minute. You can jump there using the numbers down below or the little clicky things on the time bar, but we actually just do Resist Lightning and Salvation. That's all you're going to need for this one because we are not using any other auras to boost our damage, so they're not going to help out at all. Offensive auras, this is a little bit of a variance depending on what gear you have. Some people, if they want cheaper equipment for their mercenary, they don't want to rely on their mercenary, will go Conviction, and that means you want to go down the right hand side and come down to this, dump into Conviction until you have it up to 150% negative resist, which is the cap on it. You don't want to bother putting more points into it than necessary, so consider your plus skills for that as well. Right now I have very few plus skills on this because I'm just using junk charms, but Conviction is going to be your skill if you are going for a non-mercenary focused build, which I'm using Infinity on my mercenary, so I am going with Fanaticism, which lets me skip out on a lot of the faster attack rate because level 22 Fanaticism plus a good Grief gives you max attack speed for the max attack breakpoint for Zeal with our current weapon, which we are using Grief. So it works out pretty good. It doesn't help your party as much, but if you're doing this solo, it doesn't matter. So attack speed plus 35%, party damage versus your damage, they get about half the boost for the damage, and you get an attack rating boost. Combat skills, a lot of people will recommend that you max out Zeal first. Get Zeal up to a reasonable level, get 5 hits, get your attack rating up to a point where you can actually hit things. Then I usually just dump into Sacrifice and then follow that up with the rest of the points into Zeal. And then if I get more points, which I will, I'll be capping out in one level, and I'm level 91. I'll get Charge just for a bit more mobility because I don't use Teleport on this character because we don't have faster cast rate enough to really use it effectively. I mean, you can use it. It's your personal preference. Now, as far as my mercenary gear, we're going to go ahead and cover him first, if I can actually remember. Close that. And I think it's O. Yeah, there it is. So I always forget what his hot button is. We actually have our Ethereal Infinity, we have our Fortitude, and we have an Endariel's Visage. That's just standard go-to for an Infinity mercenary. For an alternative to that, if you are using Conviction, I would recommend using the Reaper's Toll as his weapon instead of Infinity, because you don't want overlapping convictions. It doesn't work well that way. Conviction is just kind of one of those auras where you only want one floating around. It's a complicated aura whenever it comes to enemies having it, though, so yay. But Reaper's Toll gives you Decrepify, which boosts your physical damage, which lets you drain more from enemies, and lets your mercenary drain more from enemies, and it also has 14% life stolen on it, so it's a good weapon, and I do use it on some mercenaries. Ethereal one would be ideal, throw a good socketed thing into it. This is just a trash one I had laying around to show off, because I'm using my good ones on other characters. Now, As far as alternate equipment, if you are going Conviction, you will also want increased attack speed. Laying of Hands is a good, cheap option for this. Otherwise, 20% increased attack speed, Blood Gloves are really where you want to go. You might want to go High Lord's Wrath for the amulet, which we didn't go with. I went with some cheapo Resist Mana Steel amulet for some magic find. But Nosferatu's Coil is also a good source of increased attack speed, and it does slow targets, which gives you a little bit more control over them. Your Holy Freeze Mercenary is good for this as well. This is why I'm using Holy Freeze on here. It helps control the crowds, and since you're a Tesladin, you do actually have Confuse when you're struck. So whenever you're getting attacked, you actually do have some crowd control there. I did want to put Dracul's Grasp in here to show something. The reason why you don't use Dracul's Grasp with this, despite some people actually really liking it, is that you don't want to have that life tap overriding the Confuse. If you were doing a Oradin where you're actually using the Holy Shock yourself, then yes, Dracul's Grasp is fine. But whenever you are using just your current setup, not so much, because you don't want them overlapping each other. Life Tap is not going to help you that much in this situation. Instead, we are using Venom Grip for Crushing Blow. Venom Grip plus Goblin Toe, that gives a 30% Crushing Blow, which is good. 1 in 3 hits, roughly, is going to give you a Crushing Blow. Not really a lot else in either one of those is super useful. You could go with, there's another boot that has 15% Crushing Blow, a little bit of Bleed, a little bit of Critical Strike, which is also good as well. But it's up to you which one you prefer. I prefer just having the Crushing Blow and getting it out of the way. 5% life leech on the gloves, some poison resist, some other stuff like that, just some garbage on there. Raven Frost, kind of a necessary thing if you're going to be going melee. It gives you Cannot Be Frozen, which is super important. Cannot Be Frozen is pretty much essential for any melee character, in my opinion. I even use it on some mages as well, depending on whether I need plus skills for that particular type of mage. But as far as our other one, I'm using a dual leech ring. You can use just a single leech. I would recommend something with resists on it. First of all, just to get your resist max out, you want to be as durable as possible, and that helps out. And we also have the String of Ears, which is damage reduction. This one's an actually decent one. Higher life leech would be nice, but damage reduced by 15%, magic damage reduction by a straight 15, which then you do want to combine percent damage reduction with the numerical damage reduction. That way you lower it by a percent and then you drop that damage by a number. It's really useful against damage over time, things like Inferno, some of the particularly nasty Bone Spear enemies down in Neelathax, stuff like that. This belt is priceless. Get as many of them as you can get. On our armor, we have Chains of Honor, as we have seen before. This is what we had on the Avenger Tesladin as well. I like it because the +2 all skills, all resistances, and damage reduction. Has some plus strength, it has a little bit of magic find. It's just an all-around amazing piece of armor. You can go Enigma if you like, but that does have a hit on your resistances. I just prefer having decent resistances. Amulet, like I said, just using a cheap Resist Mana Leech amulet with 25% magic find, which works out a little bit. The extra attack rating is nice as well because that helps you attack. Most of my charms right now are attack rating, a little bit of magic find, and yeah, just stuff like that. Resists. Just some stuff to throw in there to have a little bit of extra help on it. Now, the main 3 pieces of gear on this particular character are going to be your shield, your helmet, and your weapon. For the Zealot, you actually really want to go for a Grief. It's a relatively cheap rune ward deck. Just make a good one of it. Make a few of them if you can afford the lows for it. The rest of the runes are super easy to get. But make a few of them. Try to get that 40% increased attack speed. A good damage boost to it is nice as well. The damage plus, that damage plus is a little bit weird. It's not a plus min-max damage. It's more like an elemental damage, except physical, if that makes sense. It's a tacked on rather than applied to the percents or the actual weapon's damage. So that is important to remember. It does function a little bit differently. Ignore target defense is nice. A little bit of Deadly Strike on here gives you a chance at double damage. You have some reduction to enemy poison resist, which is okay. It does actually work with your Venom grips and the fact that this does apply Venom to your weapons. It helps out a little bit, but you're mostly just using any poison you get from this stuff to keep enemies from healing. But you already have Prevent Monster Heal on here, so it works fine that way as well. You get a little bit of life and mana after each kill, which does help out because this is going to be a variant that you're going to be going into Storms with. So do keep that in mind. This is a 40% increased attack speed one. They can go lower. 40% is the cap, so that's kind of what you're aiming for, especially if you're going for the Conviction variant instead of the Fanaticism variant, because Fanaticism helps you hit that kind of cap, whereas Conviction variant, you need High Lord's Wrath, you need some 20% increased attack speed gloves, and you don't necessarily need a Nosferatu's Coil, but sometimes you can actually go with this and get your increased attack speed elsewhere and have a better choice of amulet. but that's really important there. The other two things are going to be your two dreams. I currently have them in a diadem and a sacred targe. Obviously, you could get a better sacred targe with higher resistances or just something else with high resistances as far as the paladin shields. You can put in any shield you want, but paladin shields, if you're using it on a paladin, are kind of a given. And yeah, Holy Shock Aura, basically these two combined give you a level 30 Holy Shock that goes along with your thing, so you're doing a boosted amount of damage with each of your attacks from the Holy Shock Aura and the stacked synergies, letting you do a decent amount of damage. The Cast Confuse is your personal control that allows you to control various groups of enemies. Like, they'll hit you and then a whole group of them will get confused. They'll start attacking each other. That gives you a little bit of breathing room. Your Mercenaries' Holy Freeze Aura will also slow them down, meaning they're less likely to hit you as often. Even if you don't get that confuse off, you actually have two 10% chances to get that off, so it's pretty good. Faster hit recovery, the two of these alone put you at a decent hit recovery rate. Faster block rate, you don't really have that much of, unfortunately, on this, but you're fine for the most part. You also have an increase to your maximum life there, only 50 life there. These do kind of work together pretty well on that, because the plus life, not the plus vitality, but the plus life actually works really well with the increased percent life. And I think that's about it. Between the two of these, you actually get some decent resist as well. This is a very high resistance build, and together they do pretty good. They have some magic find on them, so you can actually do some magic find. I had some really crappy rolls on those, but let's go ahead and demonstrate it a little bit. If you do have any questions for like alternative gear, do be sure to ask. This is on Players 1. You can see that I'm still pretty much one-shotting things. Oh no, they got a hit on me, and now everything's confused and I don't have to worry about shit. So that tends to work out pretty good. And you will see every now and then against like particularly tough enemies, you'll see a dip there. This does not do as well against bosses as the Vengeance. And honestly, if I was going to do act bosses a whole lot with a melee build, I would actually go for the Exile variant of a Smiter rather than a Zealot or Avenger. This is more just for clearing, like, not necessarily act bosses, but the big super uniques, like, well, like what we're doing right here. We're going after a super unique, and we're taking a little bit of damage here. We can do a little bit of healing there, and we'll see that these guys go away, and then we just kind of chop that guy to pieces, chop his life into pieces. That is his last resort. Yeah, that's pretty much what we're doing here. Against a lot of range enemies, not as pretty. Hopefully we actually get a confuse. There we go. There's that confuse off. And doesn't confuse the super uniques and stuff like that, which is fine, but their allies will still attack them. It's just good for crowd control. This one's pretty good for dealing with super uniques. I still prefer the Vengeance one because I can just focus in on that super unique, knock them out, be gone. I can kill their little friends if I want to, but this one is still good. The main drawback to Zeal, I don't know if you guys noticed it in there, it's not super evident on single player, but it's more evident on Battle.net. You'll have a Zeal lock, where basically you're stuck swinging and not hitting for the entirety of your 5 hits. You'll also have issues where it'll desync and you'll not be hitting every hit and all kinds of stuff like that. It's kind of a complicated thing, but Zeal is still a very powerful skill. It's a multi-target one. It's good for crowds, especially if you're dealing with a lot of enemies around you. It'll pop around and hit all of them. Well, it'll have 5 of them, but I just prefer being able to say, I'm hitting this, it's going to die. I'm hitting this, it's going to die. Zeal does that to an extent, but it also veers off. It's got kind of the same issue as being strafe locked for the Amazon, where you'll sit there and poop and kind of have wasted attacks. And I don't really like that much, but it is still, it's fine. It's not amazing, it's just fine. So anyway, if you guys enjoyed this, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time on another Diablo 2 build video. Be sure to, if you have a particular build you want me to try to cover, mention it down below and I'll take a look at it. And I will be doing variants of builds as well, but do expect some new builds in the future. I may even do, as there was a comment about it, the Lightning Holy Shock Auradin, which is more the proper name for it. Basically, where you're using Holy Shock instead of using the Dream equipment to get a level 30, you're actually using it yourself. This has pros and cons because it actually, you get those 2 slots back, but you're also generally going to have either the same or lower Holy Shock unless you are very kitted specifically for it. So it's kind of a mixed bag there. It's up to you to decide which one's best, and of course we also have Call to Arms and Spirit on the alt, but yeah, I might cover that one as well, just to show it off. It's not really my favorite variant. I tend to prefer having the Holy Shock on the equipment. So keep gaming, have fun, peace out. This has been Alzorath. Bye.